Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little tidbits about things that I've learned and all that kind of stuff. And I was really thinking today about, since I did like the book thing yesterday, I really wanted to tell a story today that I think would be helpful to people that would, I don't know. I get a lot of questions about breakups and relationships and leaving careers and making changes in your life and how scary that is. And so I thought, well, I have kind of a poignant story that goes along with that. So I thought I would tell that. It was 10 years ago, this past 10 years ago, Halloween weekend. My mom and I, my ex and a friend of ours, and my friend was in her late 50s at the time, we went to a cabin in Gatlinburg and we had a really fun weekend, right? And, everything about the weekend was great. But in looking at my life at that time, my life wasn't where I wanted it to be. I was very unhappy in my career. I didn't feel like it was the place I needed to be anymore. Yet I couldn't imagine my life without it. I had been there for 13 years. I was terrified to leave. I didn't know who I was if I wasn't there. I had been in a relationship for 6.5 years, and what had happened was, and he's a very amazing person, but what had happened was we had grown apart, and we had become good friends that shared space together, but we weren't romantic, and it wasn't passionate whatsoever. And I think both of us knew that, and both of us wanted to have something more. It was also, I think we both realized past the point of fixing, if that makes sense. Like, we couldn't go back to that, you know what I mean? And, later after we broke up, he said to me, I want you to know I felt exactly the same way you did for months and was afraid to say anything about it. And that being that we were just friends. We were just friends sharing space, and that was great, but life should be about so much more, I think, and each of us deserve to have that romantic, passionate love in our lives. And, there were other things in my life that were going on that I just wasn't real happy with, whether it be finances or whether it be I wasn't traveling a lot, on and on and on. Even though I was just on this trip for the weekend, it was like I wasn't living my full life. I wasn't living the life that I would want to have. So we had this really fun weekend. We ended up actually staying like 2 more days. We stayed through the Halloween holiday and all that kind of stuff. And the cabin that we had looked right up over the Smoky Mountains, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it was a really incredible weekend because I think what it did for me was it removed me from my environment. It removed me from my situation where I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't really thinking about the downside of our relationship, which in the month after we got back got 10 times worse because it was like Thanksgiving coming up. And I kind of in my mind had said, if we can just make it to Christmas, like Christmas was always great for us. I was like, if we can just make it to Christmas and maybe we can work through things, even though I knew it was over. My job, I was so unhappy at, but I knew okay, I'm away for a week. I don't have to deal with this. They can't get in contact with me. I'm up in the mountains, on and on and on. And anyway, I think that I needed to be in a really positive space to have what happened to me happen. And what happened to me was almost kind of like divine intervention, honestly. So my friend that was in her late 50s at the time, she's married, and she was not in the happiest of marriages, let's just say that. And we were sitting outside talking, and I'll never forget this. We were both in these rocking chairs looking over the Smoky Mountains. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening, and it was just dusk. It was absolutely beautiful, And we were sitting out there talking, and she said, "You seem so happy on this trip." And I said, "I feel really happy." And she said, "Yeah, but I notice it, in response to how you're not happy at home. Like, you seem so unhappy. You seem so miserable." And I said, "I feel miserable at home." And she didn't get into it. She didn't say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Peter. What can I do? What can I do to make it right?" Get it, but she didn't say anything to fix it. And I think sometimes if we are truly good friends to people, we tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. My best friend, Tanya, always tells me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear, because she loves me and she knows what's best for me. And sometimes it's not best for me to sit back and hear my best friend just, "Oh, I'm so sorry." That's not always the answer I get. So my friend looked at me and she said to me, she goes, "Don't wait till your husband is, 65 years old sitting on the couch every night watching CNN news to do something about it." And it was like a brick wall brick upside my face. I was like, I gotta get out. I gotta change some things now. And I came back, and with a vengeance, I was like, it was inside, it wasn't external yet, but I was like, I've got to make some changes in my life. got to get out of this relationship that we're just friends. You know, I love him as a person, but I do not love him romantically anymore. I deserve to have that. He deserves to have that, you know? And I think a lot of times if you really love somebody, you have to be willing to say, okay, you know what? I can't give you what you need. You deserve to go find it. And selfishly step back and allow that person to have that. And this wasn't an altruistically selfish moment for both of us. I mean, or for me alone, you know? I mean, like, we both wanted to get out and have something else. And you know, I knew I wasn't happy at my job anymore. I sat on this for a month, okay? I sat on it for a month and I was like, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. And I knew that I had to make take some serious risks in my life for me to do that. I knew that I was going to have to, you know, cut back financially on things because I was going to be on my own. I knew that it was going to be hard to be on my own. I had been with somebody for 6.5 years. And prior to that, I had been in a relationship for 5 years, and there was only 3 months in between the two. So I had basically been in a relationship for almost 12 years, you know? And I was terrified of what that looked like. I was terrified. I wasn't one of those people that was like, I can't wait to be single. I was scared. You know, I didn't want that world, and that was it. And, you know, going into this whole world at that time, I had never been part of social media. I had never had a MySpace account. Facebook just was coming out. You know, I just was clueless to all of it. And this whole dating world that was now online, I was completely oblivious to that, you know? And I'm old school, I'm traditional, and it scared me a lot. And in December, I had what I call my human angel. She was a friend of mine, and she came to me, and I talked about this on my vlog. And she said to me, and this is about asking for help, you know? And she had me over for dinner, and she said, this was a woman that financially has been very blessed in her life. And she said, I want you to leave your job. You're not happy there. There are other things that you could do, blah, blah, blah. What do you need to be successful? You know, writing your books, doing the things you want to do, you know, starting your business that you're wanting to start, because I wanted to start this, like, business that I'm in where I do, like, you know, team building and things like that. And I said, oh, I would need to make what I'm making now a month, probably plus some. And she's like, okay, what does that look like in a year? And I go, what? She goes, if I were willing to give that to you, I said I could never repay it. And she said, I'm not asking you to repay it. I'm asking you what that would look like. We can discuss if I can do that or not. And I said, I cannot ask that of you. I mean, seriously, like, you're a good friend of mine. I would never ask that of you. And she said, you're offending me by not answering the question. She said, let me ask you a question. I'm offering you help. What's the worst thing that could happen? And I said, I guess turn it down. And she said, what's the best thing that could happen? And I said, I guess that you would help me. And she pushed a piece of paper over with a pen and she said, write down what you need. And I wrote down my salary plus some, and I folded the paper over and I handed it back to her. And she said, okay, that's done. Can we go have dinner now? And she said, I'll start paying you next month, but you need to get out of that job because that job's going to kill you. And I was like, what? And you know what that has taught me in life is that two things, okay? When you're at the end of your rope and you're like, I don't know where to go from now, there is a blessing right around the corner from you, okay? But you have to take a risk. You have to be willing to take positive risks in your life. The second thing is that there are angels disguised as people everywhere on this earth, okay? There are people out there, there are YouTubers that I watch that save my life on a daily basis and they don't even know it. You know, they say little things and I'm like, oh my God, like, I've never heard of it that way, you know? I have aha moments all through the day where I'm talking with somebody and they'll say something, I'm just like, do you ever have those moments where you're like, did they just say that? And they don't even know what they said. They don't even realize what they said, you know? When my mom got sick and she was in the hospital, which, this is interesting, I didn't share this part of it. So this happened in January. This woman said this, or she said this to me the third week of December, and I was taking a week off and then coming back in January, and I resigned, like, right then. Had I not taken her opportunity, I would not have been able to be as present with my mother in the hospital the 3 months that she was in intensive care, period. And I did not even know she was sick when I had this conversation with the woman. It is so surreal to me looking back, you know, that it, like, all the world aligned up the way that it was supposed to. And I think sometimes when you stop resisting the world and you stop forcing things the way that they're supposed to, and you just allow them to happen and you float with the world, wonderful things happen to you, you know? And I left my job and I got out of that relationship, and you know what? 10 years later, I'm doing okay. And I look at that and I think everything that I took, every risk that I took happened for a reason. I had to ask people for help, When I couldn't be at the hospital in the ICU, I had a round of like 5 or 6 women that were at the hospital taking care of my mom on a regular basis. They were there 24 hours a day. Somebody was with my mom always. She was never alone. And that was because I was willing to accept help from people. And that's not a bad thing, okay? We don't have to be so prideful that we're not willing to accept help from people. I think that shows strength when we're allowed to ask people for help. I think it shows strength when we're willing to take risks in our life and say, I need out. No more will I willing to accept the way that I am being treated by the universe. I need to change things. I deserve a better life. We all deserve a better life. So use my story as an example if you're sitting in a situation like that and say, what do I need to do to change my life for the better so that 10 years I can be sitting here and saying, I have an amazing life? Because today, I have such an amazing life. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.